In the heart of a rising empire, power was never inherited quietly. When an Ottoman sultan died, the throne did not simply pass from father to son. It was seized, fought over, and sometimes decided by the loyalty of men who carried swords rather than bloodlines. This is the story of how the fate of an empire was shaped not by birth order, but by soldiers, intrigue, and a brutal struggle between two brothers. In the spring of 1481, the Ottoman world was shaken by sudden news. Sultan Mehmed II, known across Europe and the Islamic world as the Conqueror, was dead. At just 49 years old, the ruler who had taken Constantinople and expanded Ottoman power across two continents had collapsed unexpectedly during a military campaign. His death was not announced immediately. Instead, it was concealed by court officials, a dangerous silence that would ignite one of the most dramatic succession crises in Ottoman history. For 3 decades, Mehmed II had ruled through relentless warfare and uncompromising authority. His armies had crushed rival states, humbled empires, and spread fear from the Balkans to Anatolia. European rulers spoke his name with dread, and his war drums had become a sound associated with inevitable defeat. But with his death, that fear vanished overnight, replaced by uncertainty. The empire he built now stood on the edge of civil war. Mehmed left behind 2 surviving sons, each with a legitimate claim to the throne. The elder was Bayezid, a cautious and deeply religious prince who governed from Amasya in eastern Anatolia. The younger was Cem, charismatic, ambitious, and popular among Anatolian elites, ruling from Konya. Ottoman tradition did not recognize automatic succession. All princes of the dynasty were eligible to rule. The throne belonged to whoever could claim it by ability, divine favor, and most importantly, support. In earlier successions, older princes often prevailed because they possessed experience, allies, and influence at court, but this was not guaranteed. Ottoman history was filled with examples of brothers fighting brothers, sometimes to the death. After a sultan secured the throne, it was widely accepted that he would eliminate rivals to prevent future civil wars. Fratricide, though deeply unsettling to many, was considered a necessary tool of state survival. Mehmed II himself had legalized the practice, believing that the stability of the empire outweighed moral hesitation. That decision would haunt his sons. Bayezid had been born in 1447 near Edirne during his father's rise to power. From an early age, his life followed the rigid Ottoman model for princely training. After the conquest of Constantinople, Bayezid was sent east to govern Amasya, where he would remain for more than 20 years. There, he studied Islamic law, theology, literature, and languages. He ruled patiently, built relationships with scholars, and developed a reputation as a thoughtful and pious administrator rather than a conquering warrior. His long service in Amasya gave him something invaluable: experience. He learned taxation, justice, logistics, and governance. His court became a center of learning and religious discussion. More importantly, he cultivated strong ties with the military elite, especially the Janissaries. These professional soldiers, recruited through the Devshirme system, formed the backbone of Ottoman power. Bayezid understood their influence and carefully maintained their loyalty. Despite this, his relationship with his father was uneasy. Mehmed admired strength and ambition, and Bayezid's reserved nature made him seem cautious, even weak in comparison. Some at court questioned whether Bayezid possessed the drive necessary to continue his father's legacy of conquest. Though Bayezid remained loyal and fought alongside Mehmed in major campaigns, doubts about his suitability quietly grew. Cem Sultan, by contrast, was everything Bayezid was not. Born in 1559, Cem was energetic, artistic, and intellectually curious. He was well-educated and deeply charismatic, winning admiration wherever he went. As governor of Kastamonu and later Konya, Cem developed strong support among Anatolian elites who felt marginalized by the growing power of Devshirme officials in Constantinople. Cem's governorship in Konya placed him in a region with a long history of resistance to Ottoman rule. Formerly controlled by the Karamanid dynasty, the area was filled with local notables suspicious of central authority. Cem navigated this environment skillfully,
presenting himself as a ruler who understood local grievances. His support base became distinct from his brothers, rooted in Anatolia rather than the imperial capital. Mehmed II never publicly named an heir. This silence allowed rival factions at court to form. Some favored Bayezid's stability and religious conservatism. Others hoped Cem would bring a more flexible, culturally refined rule. When Mehmed died, those tensions exploded. As news of the Sultan's death quietly spread through the palace, the Grand Vizier attempted to manipulate the succession. He delayed announcements and tried to secure support for Cem. But the Janissaries had their own opinion. Loyal to Bayezid and deeply suspicious of political maneuvering, they erupted into open revolt in Constantinople. In a shocking display of power, they assassinated the Grand Vizier, making it clear that the army would decide the future. With the capital in chaos, messengers raced across Anatolia to inform both princes. But Bayezid's supporters acted faster. Roads to Konya were blocked, intercepting messages meant for Cem, while news reached Amasya without delay. Bayezid moved immediately. Within 2 weeks, he arrived in Constantinople with thousands of mounted troops. The Janissaries greeted him with celebration and demands, reminding him of the price of their loyalty. Bayezid was proclaimed Sultan in the new Topkapi Palace. By the time Cem learned of his father's death, the throne was already occupied. Cem refused to accept defeat. Declaring himself Sultan, he minted coins in his name and ordered sermons read on his behalf. These acts were not symbolic gestures, they were direct challenges to Bayezid's authority. Cem portrayed himself as a ruler of the people, promising relief from heavy taxation and central control. His message resonated across Anatolia. He proposed a compromise, divide the empire. Bayezid would rule the Balkans, Cem would govern Anatolia. Bayezid rejected the offer without hesitation. Division meant weakness. It meant civil war would return again and again. In his reply, Bayezid reminded his brother that power recognized no family ties. War was inevitable. Cem marched west with a modest but motivated force. He captured Bursa, the first Ottoman capital, a city heavy with symbolism. For a brief moment, it appeared that his gamble might succeed. But Bayezid responded decisively. Backed by the Janissaries and a disciplined standing army, he moved quickly to crush the rebellion before it could grow. The two brothers met near Janissaries. The battle was brutal but brief. Bayezid's disciplined soldiers overwhelmed Cem's irregular forces. Discipline defeated passion. Cem fled, his dream of rule shattered. What followed was not peace, but exile. Cem sought refuge with the Mamluks in Egypt, where he was received with honor. For a moment, hope returned. With Mamluk support, Cem believed he could reclaim his throne. He even performed the pilgrimage to Mecca, becoming the first Ottoman prince to do so. But his second attempt ended in disaster. His allies were defeated, his army dissolved, and his support vanished. With nowhere left to turn, Cem made a final, desperate move. He crossed the sea and placed himself in the hands of the Knights Hospitallers on Rhodes, traditional enemies of the Ottomans. Now, Europe held a living weapon against the empire. Bayezid understood the danger. Rather than attempt assassination or invasion, he chose containment. He paid enormous sums to ensure Cem remained imprisoned. The brother who lost the throne became a political hostage, passed between powers who saw him not as a man, but as leverage. Through all this, the Janissaries remained loyal to Bayezid. They had chosen stability over uncertainty. In doing so, they shaped the fate of the Ottoman Empire. The struggle between Bayezid and Cem revealed a harsh truth. In the Ottoman world, legitimacy was not decided by blood alone. It was earned through alliances, military loyalty, and timing. When Mehmed II died, it was not destiny that crowned his successor. It was the swords of soldiers who decided which brother would rule. And with that decision, the empire entered a new era.